Hello, everyone. Welcome to MarketBeat Monday. We are so glad to have you here. Thanks for those of you who joined us early today. If you've not been to MarketBeat Monday before, we're going to take recommendations from you live in the chat with a cold look at some of the stocks that you've shared with us today. As always, we have MarketBeat analyst Thomas Hughes and Chris Markoch here to break down all of the stocks you want to hear about today. We're going to start off by talking about some of the big market movers of the day. But first, a unique start to the day. Thanks for everybody who tuned in early and sharing where you're watching from. I love to see this. We've got some people from Chicago. We've got some people from the UK. It looks like we've got some people from British Columbia watching today. So thank you all for joining us again on MarketBeat Monday. We love to have you as part of this community. All right, Chris and Thomas, let's get started. There's a lot of green in the market today, especially in big tech. I think that really stood out today. There's all green, really, except for really Nvidia and AMD a little bit and MU, but everybody else seeing a lot of green in the market. Apple had a really good day, it seems.
Right. A lot of the big tech companies are going to be reporting this week, and expectations are pretty high. Market's pretty optimistic. We're seeing that in all the stock prices. Looking at tech in general, the XLK tech sector ETF, the market looks like it's winding up for a pretty big move. And I think that this week could be the trigger, this week and next week, because we'll be seeing reports from all these companies. The ones that don't report this week will be next week, and they should all be pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves in big tech. And like you said, earnings is coming up. I think that's what we're all kind of looking at. Chris, let's talk about what earnings are coming up yet this week. Do we have any of the big names reporting this week?
Yeah, we've got Microsoft and Tesla report Wednesday. Both report after the market closes. We've got Apple reporting Thursday after the market closes. And we've also got a lot of the big defense stock names reporting this week as well. So this is a big week on the earnings calendar. The next couple of weeks actually are going to be really the peak of the earnings season right now. We're going to be hearing from a lot of the big names. But in terms of the three really big names in tech, you're going to get Microsoft, you're going to get Tesla, and you're going to get Apple.
Yeah, a lot coming up this week that could move the market in one way or another. I know the last few big tech earnings we've seen this build up, right? This build up, this green chart that we see in the heat map. It's kind of expected leading up to earnings. And then even, no matter what happens in that earnings report, we sometimes see the market really pull back after earnings. Any thoughts about that potential this year, no matter, or this quarter, no matter what comes? Is the market kind of poised for no matter how good this report is, it might not be enough to satisfy?
That's certainly a possibility. S&P 500 looks, reasonably strong right now. We're tickling new highs at today's close. The charts are set up for a bullish swing. It looks to me like we could hit new highs within the next few days. To me, in that scenario, that kind of affirms the outlook for a rising market. My targets right now are in the 74 to 7,600 range for the S&P. I see that happening maybe by mid-year. Certainly there could be pullbacks, but I think any pullback will be mild and result in a buy signal.
All right, very good. Well, it is time to dive into some of the stocks that you guys want to hear about on the channel today. Thomas, I'm going to have you look up BigBear.ai. We'll start talking about that one. And Chris will do a new name that came in early on in the chat was QXO. So I'll have Chris talk about that in a minute. Thomas, you're going to talk about BigBear. And I love in the chat hearing where everybody's from. I've never really asked that before. And it's so great to see how many countries are represented here today. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. All right, Thomas, let's get to BigBear. What's been going on with this stock? It doesn't seem like it's been doing a whole lot recently.
Well, right. So the last, couple of weeks, we haven't really talked about it. And there hasn't really been that much change. And no change in the news cycle and the outlook. Still a company with lots of potential, but also lots of risk. What I see right now is still just winding up in a wait and see kind of mentality. But what we have happening is retail traders are more interested than the market itself. Institutions and analysts coverage is still pretty light, so not a lot of support in that regard. Short sellers are still pretty heavy, capping gains. So in that light, even with some good news, I would say that volatility is possible, a pretty substantial move is possible, but I think gains will be capped at the $8-9 level until we get something in the outlook that changes and starts getting the institutions and the analysts more involved. but until then, it's just going to be kind of a fight between short sellers and retail traders. And I think retail traders will end up losing.
Yeah, I think that was what stood out to me. Flipping through some of the charts on this one, the current institutional ownership is only 7.5%. And I don't think I've seen a stat that low, even on some of the micro, tiny little penny stocks we've looked at in the past.
Right.
That's a really low amount of institutional
Right.
ownership. Why do you
That
think
just,
institutions aren't interested?
well, it reflects cash burn and unclear visibility for revenue and profits. It's too much of a high risk for them to be interested. There's other stocks, riskier, or not risky, but other risk on stocks that have a better outlook than this one for them to go and try to get into.
All right, interesting enough. That's a good look at Big Bear. Again, I've got a lot of good names coming in. So, Thomas, I think the next one I'm going to have you look at is look at what Redcat is up to today. I think it might have had a little bit of a pullback. That's RCAT. Chris, let's get into QXO. What is this company?
So I've been looking at this, Bridget, because this was a name I wasn't really familiar with. So QXO is it's a platform company is kind of the best way to look at it. It's a company that what they do is they buy fragmented old school businesses, they roll them up under one umbrella, and then they use technology to try to scale those and better, scale the companies up, make them work more efficiently to boost the margins. Their CEO is a gentleman by the name of Brad Jacobs. He has a history of doing this and doing this well. So this is a company that right now seems a little bit like you're buying the jockey, not the horse sort of situation here. Stock's moving higher because the company's made a couple of capital raises here in the last, actually just in the first part of the year. And the thinking is that they're going to be taking some of that capital and they're going to be spending it on acquisition, which is potentially a reason for the stock to move higher. One thing I did notice with the stock is analysts tend to like it. It's got a consensus price target of $32.43, which is about 35% higher than its closing price today. It does have about 21% short interest on it, though. So again, it's falling a little bit in that category that we've talked about a lot with some stocks like this. High short interest, but it's also one that the analysts tend to like.
Yeah, I was just looking at the analyst upgrades. The recent price targets are all $30 or more. And so that would give some upside on the stock, which is good to see.
And it does have about 60%, almost 60% institutional ownership. So there's a reason to believe that, there could be something to what the analysts are saying.
Yeah, love to see it. All right. Well, we're going to have you cover some of the other mining stocks that people are interested in. I think USAR was one of them. We've got a couple of people ask about MP. So we'll look at those ones together a little bit. Let's get into Redcat, Thomas. What's going on with Redcat? This is a name we've talked about lots of times on the channel. It had a pretty big pullback, it looks like.
Right. Redcat is pulling back, but this is a move that should have been anticipated, could have been anticipated. This stock is rocketing higher on results. The results are good. The guidance that was issued a week or 10 days ago was pretty good, above expectations, pointing to accelerating hyper growth. So what we're seeing today is this market has accelerated and it slammed into resistance at prior highs. And now we're just pulling back from that a little bit. So this is just natural market mechanics, hitting resistance, working through this resistance point. Right now, the pullback, it's above 10%, but it's not really that big in comparison to the prior movements. We're still above what I see to be a critical support level near about $14, $13.50. That's kind of near the prior closing highs. As long as we stay above that level or show support near that level, I would say that this uptrend that started late last year is still intact. Along with that, I see rising volume, convergent indicators. So yeah, this pullback to me is just consolidation. The market working through this resistance, setting up for its next move. I would expect to see this one, retest the recently set high, if not move up to set another new high pretty soon.
One follow-up question on Redcat. I know we made a couple of our lists in the last week too. There's been a lot of bullish action on this one. But looking at earnings from November, it had a big miss, it looks like.
In November, let me check that out. I'm looking at one that was just released like a few weeks ago.
Oh, you're right. Maybe I have. No, March
Right.
10th.
So sometimes with these smaller companies, the news stream doesn't really keep up with the actual news. They did release a report middle of January, about 2 weeks ago. Or maybe what this is that this is a guidance update. But the guidance update was pretty positive, increasing the guidance, leading to an above consensus level, which is just bullish for the market.
All right, good enough. Well, let's get on to what's happening with some of those rare earth stocks. Let's have you look into OKLO and SMR, Thomas, okay? So you can look at
All
both
right.
NewScale and Oklo. And then, Chris, let's get into some of these names. And Thomas, please feel
Yeah.
free to weigh in on any time if you've got some other thoughts on these mining
right.
stocks. USAR is what we're starting with, right, Chris?
Yeah, we can start there if you want. That's fine.
So what happened with those stocks today? I believe there was a big announcement with that one.
USAR stock went down a little bit today, actually pretty sharply today. It was down, let's see, 31. I'll have to double check here. So, yeah, well, shoot, no. Now it's, okay, so it was up, no, actually it was up today. It was up about 7.8% today. Sorry, the chart confused me a second. I didn't zoom out. I didn't zoom out far enough.
Right.
I wondered.
Yeah, I didn't zoom out. I was like looking at it. I was like, what? No, I was like, no, okay, actually it did. It shot up today. So it's about 8% today. Yeah. So this is a company that, there's a lot of things going on here. We're trying.
Oh, Chris, I think we lost your microphone for a minute. Yeah, your microphone came unplugged for a second. So, Thomas, why don't you take over? What did you hear about USAR today, Thomas?
Well, USAR, the government announced a stake in the company. They bought in at a discount, so they're immediately showing a profit. And then the market responded to that. It rocketed higher, just like it did with MP Materials. But what I'm seeing in the charts is kind of scary right now. The market definitely gapped open. We had pretty good volume, but it sold off throughout the day. We're showing resistance at the $32 level. This confirms the spike that happened in 2025 that was kind of in tandem with the MP Materials spike. So showing pretty solid resistance at this level. This stock can move up above that level, but it's going to take execution, which I think is a critical word for a lot of stocks this year is execution. That's going to have to advance its projects, get its mines operating, producing rare earths for it to be able to advance any further than it is. Right now, what it looks like is that this market's going to pull back, probably back as far maybe down to $22.50, $24, maybe as low as $20 before hitting support and rebounding. But I think best case scenario right now is that this one's going to be range bound between that, maybe $20 level and the $32 to $36 level until we get some really firm, established progress on the project's revenue and profits.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to pull up. Chris, if you want to try talking, we'll see if we can hear you. Yeah, we still can't hear Chris right now. Why don't you unplug and plug back in and see if it ends up working? We'll see if we can get you back. I've got the chart pulled up right now, Thomas, for MP Materials. And it looks like this one, went up a little while ago, kind of more early January. And now it's kind of maybe finding support. I'm not sure. It's kind of going right around between 70 and 60. What are your thoughts on how far this one could go?
Well, right. MP Materials looks like it's in rebound mode. It did pull back today. It's still showing support. It hasn't pulled back below what I see to be critical support levels, which is right near the 63, 62.50 level. So right now it appears to be consolidating. But as with these other rare earth stocks, it could become range bound for the foreseeable future until it actually progresses on its projects and starts really hitting some milestones.
All right, sounds good. Chris, trying you again. I can't hear anything yet. All right, we'll keep trying and see what we can get. Let's go for now to Oklo and NewScale, Thomas. Let's talk about that real quick. So Oklo has had quite a crazy year. Just looking at this chart, It's been up and down and kind of all around, where it looks like right now it's still kind of on a pullback.
It is still on a pullback. This one and NewScale both seem to be working on a bottom. What we have in the works is, a rapidly accelerating, amplifying outlook, supported by these swelling needs for energy demand. They both had some projects announced, growing pipelines. Um, so the profitability, the revenue outlook is firming. But again, we have some execution issues here where it's going to be 18 months, 2 years before we start seeing some real revenue from either of these companies. So that's a lot of risk for markets to take, and that's kind of being priced in right now. I do see a bottom forming in both these stocks above, prior resistance, which is a good sign. It shows the market has made a shift and a pivot. So when we get a rebound, I would expect to see them retest their recent highs. So for Oklo, that'd be like in the 160 to 180 range. And then if we have like some really good advancement of their pipeline, of their technology, they start, building a commercial reactor, get it operating and making money, new highs will come soon after that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Thomas. We've got Chris missing right now. Let's do, and thank you to Mary for the super chat. We love to see it. Mary, let me know if there's a stock you want us to cover. I'll get your ticker out right away. We love to see some of those super chats come in. Oklo has such an interesting story, Thomas. Like you said, there's still a lot of analyst upside for this one. I just pulled that up, and there's that consensus price target. The average is 103, at the high side at 175. So really, and honestly, low side still 14. So wild amount of range on this one in the last 52 weeks. And I think
Right.
SMR is pretty similar. SMR has dipped quite a bit from its highs, where it was at the over $50 range. And it looks like it's down about 6% in the last 5 days, but still up from the low that it was at originally. What are your thoughts on SMR?
It is tracking pretty much in alignment with Oklo, but it appears to be less favored by the market. The price action is a little bit less optimistic looking to me. And I think that's because the pipeline is less robust. There's a little bit less visibility into the long-term revenue and profitability. And that just gives the market a little bit more reason to be cautious.
All right, let's go back to having you cover. There's a lot of different names out here. I think we did a good job of going through those different NewScale and SMR and Oklo ones. Let's talk about DataVault. That's a popular one almost every week, it feels like. This one has had so much volatility recently, and you were one of the first ones to bring it up, Thomas, on the channel before. One of the questions we have from people in the chat is now a time to get in? Is this stock going to do anything again? Where do you stand on DataVault right now?
Technically, it looks like it may be at a bottom. We hit a low in late 2025. We've rebounded and since showing some support at a slightly higher level. It kind of aligns with price action in early 2025. So I would say, a bottom might be in play. This stock to me is interesting. It certainly has potential. But like some other stocks that we've mentioned, execution is going to be key right now. It's got funding, but it's burning money. It needs to build out its platform and really establish its viability as a business to get the market really interested. And like BigBear.ai, what we have going on here is retail investors versus short sellers. Institutional and analyst coverage is really tepid. Not a lot of market support from those vectors, which we're going to need to see to really get this stock to advance and stay up. So until then, another chance for some volatility. So at 75 cents, I mean, this stock could show 300 or 400% gains before hitting its really hard ceiling, which is probably around $3.50 or $4. So in this scenario, this is a good trading stock. When it's down low, you might want to buy some. When it's up high, you might want to sell some. Never buying too much of it because it's very risky until we start seeing execution, advancing on the technology, and establishing itself as a viable business.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Nice look at DataVault. Again, the short interest is lower than I thought on that one. I think it was only at 16% right now. All right, Chris, let's try it. Do we have you back?
Am I back?
You are back.
Yay!
Yeah.
Okay. We'll blame it on the weather. We'll
blame it on the weather. There we go.
That's right. We'll blame it on the weather.
Speaking of weather, hopefully, Mary, the weather's good in Boston. Thanks for joining us and for the super chat. Thomas, Mary wants to know about your feelings on Bloom Energy. I don't know if that's a name we've talked about before, so I'll give you a second to look that one up.
Right.
Let's take a look at Chris. I think let's do a little bit of an easier one with you, Chris, while Thomas looks that one up.
Sure.
We had a question about Nvidia and why Nvidia might be down today. Let's just take a look at the chart. It looks like it was just a slight little pullback. What are your thoughts on where Nvidia is right now and whether it'll get back to the highs it saw, back in October?
Okay, so as far as the what happened today, if I'm not mistaken, there was an announcement that it was making a major investment in CoreWeave, and so there's some of that circular trading narrative going on, which is probably the reason why the stock got knocked down a little bit today. Is investors are just kind of they're hearing that whole story again of Nvidia investing in CoreWeave, and then where's CoreWeave going to invest? And I think that's really largely the issue of why it's down a lot. I mean, to me, the stock's really it's not down significantly from where it's been, where it's been over the last 5 days or so. I mean, it hasn't. It's still up pretty well in the last 5 days, and it's trying to break out of a pattern that it's been in for about the past 3 months. I'm not really that concerned about Nvidia.
Yeah, I think that's a good enough look, a quick look at that one. Yeah. All right, let's have you. We've had quite a few people ask about MicroStrategy, MSTR. So I'll have you take a look at that one, Chris. Thomas, let's get on to this other name that it's new for us, Bloom Energy. What have you found out so far? BE is the stock ticker.
Well, I'm looking into this. This is a next generation technology fuel cells for co-located power generation. They seem to be well positioned for AI data center boom. What I'm seeing in the revenue stream is sustained growth. Was a little bit spotty over the last, maybe 2 years ago, but it's 4 quarters of sustained double-digit growth since then. Looking for some more growth this coming year. Profitability. Just signed a deal with AEP, a major electric utility, for a bunch of $2.65 billion in fuel cells. That's good news. That kind of affirms the outlook. So it looks like a pretty decent company. Right now, the valuation's high. We're over 250 times this year's earnings. But based on the outlook, that falls to, 30 times versus 2035, still kind of a high valuation. That gives me some pause, but it looks like the outlook is swelling. So those long-term forecasts could be low. The valuations could be off. This stock could continue to move higher.
Yeah, looking at this one, Thomas, I did the earnings, its last earnings report. It looks like it was a beat by almost double, which is very interesting to see. I think you gave a really good analysis on it. I did want to look at what the analysts are saying too. It looks like right now, it's at the price it's at right now, it's approaching even the highest end of the highest analyst estimates. Does that give you any pause?
It does. That, along with the valuation, suggests the ceiling for the market. But we've got see, when's the next report due? Potential catalysts coming up. So if we assume that they're going to start lifting their targets, then the stock could continue to rise. But until we see that next report, we might be a little cautious. The market did top out here recently. That could be a top if we don't get a good report coming up here to, boost some more sentiment.
Yeah. A good look at that one. And Thomas, we have another super chat. Richie, thank you so much for watching and supporting us. He loved your analysis on DataVault and wants to get your thoughts on RGTI, Rigetti. We can look at that and also look at some of the other stocks. I think we had somebody ask about IonQ as well, or D-Wave. So let's look at that. Those as a group. We can start with Rigetti. Chris, I have you looking at, remind me, what are you looking at right now? Strategy. That's right. Yeah. Is there anything going on with that?
Well, it's down today. It was, well, let me see if I shouldn't say that because last time it tripped me up there. It's up a little bit today. It's been down a lot over the past 3 months, and This is the company. This is the Michael Saylor company where it's basically serving as a proxy for Bitcoin. And I think if you look at the Bitcoin chart over the past 6 months and you look at Strategy's chart for the last 6 months, you kind of, the story's there. It's it's trailing Bitcoin, and when Bitcoin's going down, Strategy is going to go down more than that, and that's really what's played out. That's where we're really at here. You've kind of seen Strategy sort of level out here in the last month or so, and I think you've also seen that in the price of Bitcoin. Like I said, it really is. It's kind of a proxy for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. We've had a lot of different viewpoints on MicroStrategy and whether it's a time to get in. One thing I think that maybe some might be catching the eye of some investors, if you're looking and you look at the potential upside on this one,
Right.
It looks like there's a lot to gain on it. But what are your thoughts on that potential upside and what analysts might be saying about the future of this stock?
Well, I'm seeing analysts, I mean, they're still bullish on it, that's for sure, and they're lowering, the price targets have been lowered. Again, I would say, to me, again, this is a leveraged Bitcoin play, and if you believe that Bitcoin's going to move higher, then I think sure, Strategy would probably be a really good entry at this, at this price. But that's what it is to me. It's a leverage play on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, has gotten whacked since it got up to around 115,000, and I'm not sure if you can say you see Bitcoin getting back there anytime soon, because it seems like a lot of other risk assets are moving higher and Bitcoin's not.
Yeah. All right, a good look at that one. I had a couple interesting questions about a tiny stock that our coworker Jeffrey Neal Johnson suggested in a robotics stock. It's this itty bitty company called KITT, K-I-T-T. And it's a submarine company. We talked about it on Friday, and the stock went up. It sounds like almost 50% today. So take a look at that and see what you think about the long-term future of KITT. So KITT. Thomas, let's get to the super chat one. We are looking at, again, Rigetti.
Yeah, Rigetti. So this is quantum computing. They've had a couple of positive news developments. They got an order for one of their devices. They've had a couple of positive commentaries from analysts. Analysts certainly are optimistic about the price action. They're calling for about a 50% upside. But what I'm seeing in the price action doesn't match that. This market appears to be, kind of stagnant. It's been moving sideways for a couple of months. It's down near long-term lows, still above last year's resistance point, crossover point. So that's now, critical support. So that's a good sign. But other than that, there's not anything in the action that makes me think this market's gearing up for another big run. If anything, without revenue or some advance to the technology to catalyze some more interest, this one really is at risk of falling to a new low. If we fall below $20, it could really spell doom for this market. It could fall down to $10 real fast. And what I see in the news also, along with these positive comments, is there was a delay. And I don't think it was a big delay, just like a month or for a quarter. But any kind of execution delay just plays into the idea that these companies don't have a viable product yet. It's going to be years until they make the step to where they really do have a commercially viable product. And until then, every delay is just going to be an excuse for the market to sell, short sellers to pile in. I think short interest in this stock is pretty high too. Let's see here.
It didn't look too high this time.
Yeah, 14%. It's down from the peaks, but still up pretty high. Certainly high enough to pressure the market. And if the stock were to rise with that kind of interest, I would expect the short interest to be increased as the price action were to increase.
I'm looking, I think that's a really good analysis of what's happening in these quantum computing stocks. They get popular and then they aren't, and there's not real value or a real earnings coming in for these companies yet. They're still working on the ideas, still trying to make these computers actually work. If investors out there really believe in the products and the future of these computers and this technology, is now a buying time, or is this still a risk of buying right now?
I think that there's a risk to buy into this stock right now. But if you believe in the long-term future, I mean, really any time is a good time to buy, because if you believe in that long-term future, this stock is worth, $100, because quantum computing is supposed to be a really significant leap forward in technology that unlocks a lot of other new technologies. So, but to me, this is a total speculation without a clear path to revenue. This stock really runs the risk of falling out of market favor and just, becoming, last year's news.
Okay, interesting. And just because I've got it up, I want to just look at some of the other quantum stocks out there. We see D-Wave kind of in the same space as where Rigetti is. Like, again, we talk about many times, they kind of all run together. So their charts are going to look similar. Right. Rigetti and D-Wave look almost identical to each other. I've got IonQ pulled up too. Let's see what their chart's doing. Again, very similar to what Rigetti is doing too. Right. Do any of these three names, is there anything that stands apart for you? Or is it looking at an ETF that's involved in quantum computing if you believe in that long-term future? Do you expect these analysts' forecasts to come down on these different quantum computing stocks? Because right now, those forecasts are up quite a bit higher than where all of these stocks are right now.
Right. I think that the forecast could come down, and that is a big risk for the market, because with everything else staying the same, analysts reducing their forecast is really going to undermine market sentiment, and the market will probably front run that reduction and sell off at a much quicker pace than the analysts are actually reducing their targets, and cause quite a deep sell-off.
All right, a good look at those stocks. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. I think I had another super chat come in. Thank you guys, getting lots of them this time. Take a look at DDD, Thomas, and give your thoughts. DDD. Chris, you were looking at KIT, this tiny little one.
Yeah.
All right.
So KIT. It's kind of interesting, Bridget, because I feel like I'm reading a Clive Cussler novel here. This is great. This is the company that they're trying to do robotics for, to work beneath the ocean. This is to help offshore energy projects with small autonomous robots rather than using massive heavy ships. It's an interesting story. Certainly, you can see why there's investor interest in the technology, because if it pays off, there's a huge addressable market. The key thing here is the company's had a significant cash burn. They just had to get back into compliance with NASDAQ at the end of 2025 into 2026. So it's a high risk, high reward play. But the company does have some contracts with they have commercial opportunities with companies like Shell and Petrobras, and they've also recently partnered with Forum Energy Technologies, which should take some of the burden for them off of trying to create their own manufacturing facilities, and instead they can focus on their software, which is a higher margin product for them. So it's going to be interesting to see. The race here is, can they start generating revenue fast enough to offset the cash burn? And that's going to be a key thing for investors to watch.
Yeah, I've got a couple of interesting comments from the chat on this topic. Ted Condi says, KIT is also a rare earth play, not only robotic, it could be underwater discovery of rare earth materials. I think that's an interesting thing. Any thoughts on that, on whether that could play into KIT's story at all?
I suppose it could, because again, if you're using these autonomous robots to do underwater drilling, let's say, that you would do to look for oil and stuff like that, yes, I think theoretically you could probably use it for rare earths. Again, it still goes back to that, how accessible are those minerals? What are they going to have to do to get them? And it's the idea of, again, how fast can they get the revenue, as opposed to having to keep doing share offerings to keep themselves solvent.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm hoping that Chris is still watching. He asked early on about LAC, and I said we were going to get to it, and then I completely forgot that one. So here we go. Lithium Americas, just to get one more rare earth name in. If you were watching earlier, we did cover a few of them. And it does look similar to the charts that we were looking at before, the USAR and the MP charts. It's going up a little bit, but not too much. Anything different happening for LAC, and is now a time to get in?
Well, I mean, it's up 26% in the last, so basically 26% essentially in 2026. So it's
Yeah.
something going. I think there's a lot of, I think lithium is starting to, I wouldn't say it ever got out of favor, but I think people are starting to get re-energized in the lithium trade. They're starting to see that it's going to be needed, especially in areas like autonomous and things like that. So yeah, I think Lithium Americas is good. I know I wrote a piece recently about Albemarle. I think that one's coming back too. That's the mining. So yeah, lithium looks good here. It's a little bit over the analyst consensus price target, but we might be seeing those price targets come up. It doesn't report earnings until the end of March, so it's one of the last ones you're going to see reporting. But I just saw Scotiabank increase their price target to $7, and that's over 20% above the consensus. So there's renewed interest in the lithium trade, and Lithium Americas is a solid choice in that sector.
Yeah, Chris Wilder, again, the question he had was, will LAC take off when they start reporting revenue? So if that revenue story changes and they're actually becoming profitable, do you see the stock taking off even more?
I do, because I don't think all of that, the interest with, or the expectation for revenue, I don't think that's all priced into the stock yet. So I do think it can go higher there. You look at where the stock was in 2022, and it was up over $24, and that was on nothing but speculation. So yeah, I think the stock has a fair bit to go. But again, they have to start generating revenue. It's the execution part that Thomas has talked about on this channel so far.
Okay, very good. Chris, thank you. And thanks for all the great names coming in. We still got time to cover more, so I'm going to get to a few other names here. AMPX is one that we hear about a lot, so we can do that one again too. It looks like we have a few people asking about, we've talked about Hood the last few times, but we could talk about Hood again. And Hecla Mining, that sounds like it's up your alley a little bit. Hecla Mining is one we could look at as well. All right, Thomas, which one are you looking at?
3D Systems, DDD.
Okay. What have you found out about this stock?
Well, it looks interesting right now. This is a 3D printing manufacturing company. It's been expanding, accelerating markets, looking at dental and medtech. It's been a driver. Right now, I see this as a potential short squeeze candidate. The news flow suggests that this company is about to pivot from cash burn to cash flow, and we've got a high short interest, about 25%. The short interest has been coming down. That kind of aligns with what I see in the chart, which is a bottom, near the 175 region, occurred late last year. Since then, the market has advanced and crossed above the cluster of moving averages, which to me is a pivot point and a launch pad, for a squeeze or for a rally, provided we get a catalyst, which could come in the upcoming release. The company has been working on some cost-saving efforts. So if we see some traction with that could provide the catalyst for some more robust short covering and get this stock moving. Also, analysts appear to be positive. They're looking for 100% upside at the consensus. And for being a small cash burning company, it's got a 65% institutional interest, which I would say is pretty solid. All aligns with market support and potential for short squeeze.
When you say potential for a short squeeze, do you think that is just in the short term, or we're talking about long-term potential for the stock? Do you see this as a potential long-term possibility?
Oh, a long-term possibility. And in this scenario, the short squeeze would be like setting up and completing a market reversal, leave the market in a position to consolidate and regroup, wait for the company to provide the next catalyst, and then potentially continue trending higher over the long term.
So it's still a good buying opportunity where it's at today?
Looks like it.
All right, very good, Thomas. Let's have you look into AMPX. That's the one that a lot of people want to hear about. Right. So we'll be ready to talk about that one soon. Chris, which one are you ready to talk about first?
Hecla Mining. That was the one you gave me, I thought.
Okay.
So the stock dropped about almost 6% today, and that was on a headline news, Bridget. The company announced just about an hour before the market closed, it looks like. They announced that it's going to be selling divesting, I should say, its Casa Berardi gold mine in Quebec for about $593 million, and they want to focus more on their premier silver operations. So the company says they're going to be taking the proceeds of that deal to, again, focus on its silver assets, strengthen its balance sheet, and the deal is supposed to close in the first quarter. So the question really for investors right now is this a buy the dip opportunity in Hecla? It's been one of those stocks that's gone sort of like a lot of the like the gold and silver itself. It's kind of gone parabolic here in the last month or so. The pullback was probably due anyway. I would probably be looking to see if the stock would give you a little bit more of a substantial dip before buying, but certainly this is one that I'd want to be looking at.
Okay, very good. And let's have you look up Hood next. It looks like it's by popular demand to take a look at that one.
Oh, okay, Hood. Okay.
There's also some popular demand to look at Archer, so we could take a look at that one too. All right, let's look at AMPX. It's a crowd favorite, especially on MarketBeat Monday. What do we have happening in AMPX this week?
Well, the stock moved lower today. It moved lower last week too. So we have a near-term top in play. But that aside, it looks like this market is rebounding from last year's lows. This is ahead of the upcoming earnings report. To me, this looks pretty optimistic. We are expecting to see a pretty solid report based on the deal pipeline, demand for the product, the end markets, which is defense and drone and unmanned vehicle related. All of those markets are being stimulated by defense spending. So I'm expecting to see a pretty good report, certainly one to catalyze upward movement in the stock price, potentially one that will amplify the long-term outlook, and potentially also get the analysts to lift their prices. One of the recent news events, late December, the company announced an expansion of its South Korean battery alliance, which is its contract manufacturing capacity. It added 3 more battery manufacturers to its capacity, which means that it now has contracted capacity which exceeds its own internal goals. So it's capable of fulfilling the demand outlook for the next year or two pretty easily, which affirms the outlook for robust hypergrowth, triple-digit growth, and profitability within the next few quarters.
Yeah, AMPX, like you said, it's been going down. We've been hearing from viewers in different videos who said you keep talking about it and it keeps going down a little bit. I know last time that we saw a boost in the stock, it was around those earnings, which were better than expected, even though it's not quite profitable yet. Could the earnings coming up next month or later this spring be the next potential catalyst for this stock?
I think so. And I hear people, and I understand what they're talking about. The outlook for this company is really great, and yet the stock price isn't really tracking in line with that. There's a lot of time in between the two reports. It's still early in the company's growth. We're still waiting for some more affirming news to really cement that long-term outlook. And so in between those two reports, there's opportunity for short sellers to get involved, drive that market down to new lows, which is what happened in late December. But if you look at the charts, you can see that that is pretty clear V bottom happened in late December, occurring right now. Looks like really strong market support, and we're showing support at a critical level above last year's resistance points, setting us up for another move higher. We are looking for a very strong report. Should absolutely align with this outlook for hypergrowth. The analyst outlook for higher stock prices, I think they're calling for a 50% stock price increase right now. So I think the setup is very bullish. I would be loath to sell any of these stocks right now and just want to hold it and wait and see what happens with these reports that are coming up.
All right, very good. There was a request to look at NVST similar to AMPX. So I'm actually going to have you look up that one next. NVST. Okay, Chris, you are looking at Hood by popular demand.
So, Hood's been down a little bit here to start the year. It's down almost 10% and down 23% if you go back about 3 months. I think there's been some concern over Hood's exposure to the prediction markets because some people are getting sour on that, and Hood has plenty of exposure to that. It also has plenty of exposure to Gen Z, though, it turns out. And it turns out that a lot of those investors who were investing, who started accounts in Robinhood in 2021 and 2022, have actually held on to those accounts. So those people aren't leaving the stock market, and it's kind of changing. It's kind of changing the game in some ways. It's shifting some investor patterns, as I think a lot of people have experienced in the stock market, in this idea that sometimes you see stocks, GameStop for one, that they continue to just exist and do what they're supposed to do, even though there might not necessarily be fundamental support for it, but they just do. And Robinhood's got a lot of that market. Seems to be very undervalued in terms of where the analysts put it. It's also down, trading below its 50-day simple moving average. I expect the company to report very well. It doesn't report earnings, I think, until about mid-February, but I'm expecting a good report from this, and this seems like a buying opportunity for me.
Yeah, I think that the latest earnings report on this one shows really strong earnings, better than anyone expected. So I think that there is that potential to get in before the next earnings report if it happens to do the same thing again.
I think it got a little bit ahead of itself at the end of last year, and it's pulled back some, but now it's one of those situations where it's pulled back, but now it's pulled back too much. And I think this is a buying opportunity.
All right, Chris, thank you for that. Okay, Thomas, let's go to what you found out about NVST.
Right, so it's another battery company. It is slightly more advanced in its production capacity than Amprius, but its batteries aren't quite up to speed as far as Amprius batteries go. So I think it had a little bit of a boost as far as its revenue, which we see in the price action. But since then, it peaked in Q3 last year. We pulled back pretty hard. And since then, the rebound has been pretty tepid. Today's action is showing us resistance at the cluster of moving averages, really sets us up for a deeper decline. And I think that's because Amprius is setting up to disrupt their business. Why Microvast provides some incentives, some utility, and some advantages over traditional batteries. Amprius takes it even another few notches above that, to where once they get their production ramped to full capacity, they'll be able to really just disrupt Microvast business, as well as the battery industry in general, I would say.
All right, very good. It sounds like I might have missed a super chat, so sorry about that. We have a TEM. Why don't you look that one up next? I want to make sure I've got the right one.
Which one?
TEM.
Tempus AI, TEM.
Oh, TEM. I got you.
TEM. Let me just double check.
Yeah.
Sorry, I try to get through all of these chat comments. I love to see that everybody's talking, but it's just me trying to look through them. So, all right, Luna, I've got TEM coming up next. We're going to cover that one. Chris, did I have you looking at anything?
You did not.
Okay, there is one called OPTT that a few people have just recently said that there's been a lot of volatility in that stock just today. So that's interesting. Michael Anthony, great to have you here. He had a longer one here. I'll take a look at that one in a minute. But why don't we look at TEM first? What is going on with that one, Thomas?
This company is kind of transitioning from being like it's a data company to being more of a platform for healthcare. Growth is good. I'm looking at the outlook, the forecast. Right. Hyper growth. Estimates are solid. Looking for profitability within a couple years. Oh yeah, trading at a deep value relative to its long-term forecast. Yeah, so right now this market is just kind of consolidating and digesting the news that happened over the last year, which is just part of that shift to being more of a platform than just a pure data company. What I see in the chart is the market kind of building support as it gears up for its next run. And what I see happening now is upcoming results and reports will hopefully affirm this transition, the growing revenue outlook that puts the price multiple down in the low single digits by 2035. Provided we get that happening, even if it's not in the near term, if it's happening over the mid to long term, that's going to help support this uptrend and possibly lift this stock price by 200 or 300% based on that long-term price multiple.
Yeah, I'm also looking at the range. This is right in the middle of its range. Do you think that this is a good spot to be looking at potentially adding this one if you do feel, looking at consensus right now, it looks like analysts, it's a hold from several analysts, although it does still look like there's quite a bit of upside from where it trades today.
Right. Well, what I'm seeing is the market is really building a support base at current levels. So yeah, right now in the low 60s to low 70s looks like a pretty decent, buy zone for the stock. Looking at the analysts, it is a hold, 30% at the consensus. The trend is up, so they're leading to the high end of the range. Recent targets put it in, the 85, 95, 105 range. Right. So certainly is a bullish outlook for this market. I think we're just waiting for a catalyst to set it on fire.
All right, good. Thank you for that, Thomas. Now let's get to this new one. I don't know that I've seen OPTT before. Is this the first time you've looked at it?
This is the first time I've looked at it, and again, you've got me looking like I'm reading a Clive Cussler novel again. This is Ocean Power Technologies, and I guess this is right along the alley of the same investors that might like Kit, might like this one as well. So the company, they deliver advanced unmanned systems that are operating in oceans, lakes, inland waterways. Their products combine autonomous intelligence, real-time data collection, renewable energy. Their purpose is to align with companies in the defense and the commercial sectors. And one of the things that's exciting some investors about the stock at this moment is the fact that about a couple of weeks ago, they signed a $5 million contract with the U.S. Coast Guard, and they're partnering with Anduril. So there's a lot of things that they're excited about in terms of what that means for the company in terms of their revenue generation. Let's keep in mind, though, this is a penny stock, literally a penny stock. It's trading at 57 cents a share at the market close today. So analysts are bullish. They have a $1.50 price target. That's a 12-month target on it. So there's a lot of interest in it, especially since this last contract came through. It could be worth a speculative bet, but again, it's a speculative stock. It falls into that category.
Yeah, very speculative. All right. We usually wrap up about now, but I've got two more speculative type names that I'd love to talk about. Gamer, you've been trying for a while, so let's do UAMY. I'm going to have you look that one up, Chris. And then Thomas, I want to talk about one. It's an insider buy that Michael is sharing, UUU. And I know you do our insider buys articles every week, Thomas, so you can look this up real quick. He says Universal Security Instruments, somebody inside the company purchased 95,000 shares of the stock just last week.
What company? I've got UUU as Universal Safety Products.
I see Universal Security Instruments. Maybe it's the same thing?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Universal Safety.
UUU is the ticker that I have right now.
Right, that's what I got. UUU. And what did you call it? Universal what?
Security Instruments, Milton C. Is there, and we can just look at UUU's chart too, just to see if there's anything happening there.
Yeah, I don't see that. I got UUU as
I see it as Universal Security Instruments.
Safety Products. Well, whatever.
UUU, it looks like it's
maybe they change names. That happens sometimes.
It's up about 12% in the last 5 days. I don't have the chart for it. This sometimes happens on these smaller, lesser known names. With the insider trade that he's talking about, it does look like 570,000 bought in Q1, which is in line with what he just said. So knowing what you know about insider trades, would you consider a purchase of 95,000 shares of a relatively very low price stock a pretty big deal or a good signal of something that might be coming within the company? What could explain that away?
It could be a signal of something to come. There's not a lot of information for this stock that I can find, but it seems to be profitable on an adjusted basis, has a low multiple. Yeah, I'm just not finding very much about that.
All
But
right.
yeah, insider buys can be good signals. You're just going to want to check with the news flow and make sure that there's something backing it up. It's not just them trying to support the market. But looking at this stock chart, it seems like something is happening. We hit a bottom in 2024, edged higher last year, really spiked the middle of last year, and has been consolidating, above this new support level since then. Uh, so yeah, this could be a good one.
All right, interesting. All right, now I'm looking at UAMY as our last
Yeah.
one for today. What's going on with this one?
Okay, so the basic case that investors want to understand about this is the company is United States Antimony, and that last word is the key one because antimony is a metal that many investors may not have heard of, but it's a critical metal for defense technology. Right now, UAMY is the only U.S. company is the only U.S. based producer of antimony. About China controls about 60 to 70% of the supply. Russia controls another significant bit of it, and therein lies the risk and the reward. Is there's the belief that China may try to, cut the U.S. off from this metal, and that would be very bullish for a stock like UAMY. So that's where we're going with this. The stock, however, has gotten really extended. It's well over its consensus price target here. It's gone up about 50% in the last month. Still, it's one of those things that, again, I think it depends on where what happens with how the U.S. government rates antimony. If they regard this as a critical metal and one that we have to have, then UAMY can look very, very low right now. But there's high risk, high reward here.
A lot of the stocks we talked about today, that
Absolutely.
qualifies as well.
And it has to execute.
That's right. It has to execute. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. I kept you the full hour instead of 45 minutes, but thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate everybody joining us today and sharing where you're from. So great to hear people joining us from so many countries and different times. I know there's many other stocks. I know Tesla was mentioned quite a bit. We'll try to get to more of these next week. I have the names written down of some that were mentioned a few times that we weren't able to get to in our Market Beat Monday today. Thanks for watching. Stay with us. I hope that we can get to even more stocks next week. As always, everyone, happy investing.